Hey, folks, welcome to the Genuinely Interested podcast. My name is Roy Bensby, and this week I have Jeff Chan from the YouTube channel MMA Shredded. Jeff is a former Muay Thai champion and now an active ONE FC fighter. He recently got signed by ONE FC, and he's just, in my opinion, someone who's paving the way for a lot of these up and coming fighters in the sense that you have to build an audience. Nowadays, being something in an industry is unfortunately not enough. Doesn't matter if you're a model, if you're going to casting, or if you're a fighter, or if you are an actor or in the tech scene, whatever your industry, it helps to build an audience. It helps to build a following. It helps to teach your knowledge of the specifics to other people and get them engaged. And once you are ready to go to the next level, you will have the backing of those people and the people that are going to sign you or going to hire you or going to work with you. They'll see that, you have this platform and you can reach a lot of people. And, I think that's something that's very useful, and he does it very well. He set up his YouTube channel, I think a little over 3 years ago, and he already has over, if I'm not mistaken, 200,000 followers and over 100,000 on Instagram. So he did a very good job of leveraging that into a, fruitful career. So he calls himself a content creator first, which, I think that's amazing that he's really true to his craft and to what he does. And, it takes a lot of time. It's not easy coming up with new things all the time and shooting and editing and voiceover. It's work. It's not just sitting and making a little clip on the computer, which I don't know if anybody still thinks that, but I'm sure maybe some of the older generation or people that don't really do any content creating might think. But it's a lot of work, and like I said, it's a great way to leverage yourself. So Jeff is right now in Ottawa on lockdown, like the rest of the world. We talk a little bit about how that might impact the sport, impact him. You can't really train right now, at least with other people. I mean, you can do a lot of, home training, but you can't really do anything outside of that. So that's something that I think him, a lot of other fighters, they have to take into account, what the future will be. I don't know what the sports world is going to look like for the next year or two, at least as far as venues selling out and people congregating in arenas to watch an event. I just don't know if that's something that's going to happen, but I guess we'll see how the next few months or years play out, and maybe there are new avenues that that sports industries can approach. Maybe VR sets that make us all feel like we're there. I have no idea. We'll see, if tech and sports somehow converge and find a way for us to experience it without actually being there. Although, for my money, there's nothing like going once in a while to a real event and enjoying it. But if you really want to see it well, like I've been to a few UFC events, you don't really, it's an experience, an atmosphere, certainly, but you don't really see as well. I don't care if you're really close or really high up. You're just not going to see as well and hear the commentary as well, obviously, if you're not watching it on, on your large screen TV. So there's two aspects. For the most part, I'm assuming people watch it on their TV, and then once in a while indulge in a big fight when it's in their neck of the woods. A lot to discuss, but yeah, we talk mainly about his fights, him himself, and the content that he's creating, and yeah, just overall one of the nicest guys I've had a chance to talk to in a while, and I had a lot of fun. He said it was his first podcast, which I'm sure there are going to be many, many more in the future. Also, guys, I appreciate the growing support. Subscribe, rate, review the podcast. It really helps. And, it's growing every week. So I really appreciate you new guys that are coming on and listening. It really helps. And yeah, I won't take up too much of your time in this intro because I know you guys really want to listen to the main podcast with Jeff. So without further ado, here is Jeff Chan. Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for coming on the show. I've been a fan for a while, and I'm happy to have you on.
Thanks for having me because it's actually my first podcast ever, so we'll make it special.
Oh wow, yeah. You were telling me before. I'm like I said, I'm excited to have you on, and it's also. I mean, I'm relatively new at this. I think this would be my either 11th or 12th. So we're both newbies. So we're exploring it together.
I heard your first podcast that you sent over, and that was a really good one. I really enjoyed listening to it.
With John.
Yes.
Yeah.
UFC commentator.
Yeah, he's amazing, man. He's such a fun guy to have, and he does this for a living. He just fills up dead time and with just talking. So he was real fun to have on.
True.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe if you can tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do.
Okay, so I would say I am a content creator / influencer and a professional MMA fighter. I would say my main priority would be content creating, but that has kind of led me to come out of retired fighting and go back into fighting. So I have a YouTube channel called MMA Shredded, and I basically create content that consists of breakdowns of other fighters, my own favorite tactics, my own sparring vlogs. So you'll find all sorts of sparring footage on my channel. And I'm starting to get into strength and conditioning.
Okay. So on your 1FC page, it basically says that you originally started martial arts with BJJ and then you switched to Muay Thai. But I always thought it was the other way around. I thought you were, a Muay Thai practitioner, and then maybe only in the last few years you started getting into BJJ.
So I actually told them a funny story about that, and I'm not sure if they fully got it. So my first day training was a jiu-jitsu class. I remember explicitly thinking, like, I like the gi, so I'm gonna train jiu-jitsu. And I remember I was partnered up with someone significantly bigger, and I guess he wasn't the most nicest guy. So he was also a white belt at the time, and the drill was to escape mount. And for the whole 5 minutes, I could not get out, and he just smothered my face with his hairy chest.
Oh,
and
no.
and I was really discouraged. Like my first class, I was stuck on the bottom and had sweat dripping all over my face. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to try striking instead. So literally after the first day, I quit jiu-jitsu, and I did Muay Thai for 4 years before I went back into jiu-jitsu. So that's probably what they meant by I trained jiu-jitsu first. So technically I started with jiu-jitsu, but really I started with Muay Thai.
Okay, so they took some creative direction with that story.
Yeah.
So how did you originally get into martial arts? Were you watching movies as a kid, like Van Damme and Bruce Lee and stuff like that, or what
To
was
be
the
honest, quite opposite. A lot of people think, or you would assume, that I have some sort of Bruce Lee fan in me. But I actually didn't watch much of Bruce Lee, and I was never into traditional martial arts. Like I didn't watch Kung Fu and all that. I watched Jackie Chan, but I didn't really believe in the effectiveness of those martial arts. How it got started with me was I've always been an athletic, child. I played soccer, basketball, football, every sport you can think of. And I was always also that guy who would, play fight with my hockey friends. Like I'd be that guy who would play like shot for shot, punch on the arm. And one day my best friend just brought me in to train martial arts, and that's just how it started. Like I didn't have the mindset to compete or anything. It was just for fun, for fitness, because I had spare time. I think I was 15 at the age.
And where was this?
The Ottawa Academy of Martial Arts. It was the first gym I trained at in Ottawa.
And they do everything: Muay Thai, BJJ.
Muay Thai, BJJ. It was a pretty much an MMA gym, very well rounded.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you started Muay Thai. I mean, you had that one class, I guess, BJJ. And I mean, I can relate to that. I've been doing Muay Thai since I was probably, let's say 21, 22.
Mhm.
So a good maybe 13, 14 years.
Oh,
Um,
wow. That's a long time.
yeah. And, I had a lot of, not a lot, but I had a good amount of amateur fights, never did anything
Mhm.
more than that.
Mhm.
But I did have my first BJJ class last year, and I was rolling with a white belt. Guy must have been good 100 pounds more than I was. And he was
Wow.
just on top of me, just like you said, like smushing his chest, his hairy chest into my face. And I was like, oh, I can't get this dude off of me. God damn. And it was just impossible. And, I came back to second class, but um, I told myself, you know what? 2020 is my time for like, I'll start BJJ. And
Mhm.
now who knows when the next time that's even going to be possible.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Who knows how long? Apparently, this lockdown could be for like a year.
It could be, man. There could be some waves, like they're saying now that, okay, now it's looking like it's a little bit better. The curve is starting to flatten out in a lot of places, but they're saying that if we ease the restrictions, then in a month or two, we could be seeing even, we could be hit even worse. So I don't
Well,
know.
what's really scary is I heard from watching a few like YouTube videos of doctors commenting on, how this will end up. And they said that it could become like the seasonal flu where it goes away and then comes back. Like that's really scary.
Yeah, it is, man. And especially if, you know, how do you see the landscape of sports and martial arts? I mean, it's a very physical thing. Well, one, it's a very physical thing, the training, right? You go into camp,
Mhm.
you're training, you're touching people, you're very close you're in close contact with other people. And then on top of that, when you do the venues, it's a venue with anywhere from 10,000 to, I don't know, 50,000 people crammed into a place. I don't know. What do you think the future is going to be, at least for the next couple of years? Like, how do you see this?
I think the training is going to be very difficult. Like I'm having a very difficult time now. I'm really eager to spar and just hit someone or get hit myself.
Yeah.
At the very least, I'm hitting pads with my fiance in the backyard or the basement. But yeah, it would be primarily the training that's going to hit the fighters very hard. In terms of the event, I don't think it's going to be too big of an issue. Like I had my debut with One Championship in a closed door event, so it was all just on video, and that was perfectly fine for me. Um, so I could see that continuing. But again, it's just the training itself to keep social distancing and not being able to train with your team.
Do you think? Because I mean, for you, that was your first. I don't want to say professional fight because you've had professional fights, obviously, but
Yeah, yeah,
it was like probably your biggest fight ever, right?
biggest for sure,
And
biggest
it was
crowd. Yeah.
big, yeah, but no crowd.
Oh, yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
But no
but
crap.
so for you, maybe you don't have like a reference point, but you think other fighters, maybe you've talked to them and they've said, I love the energy, I love that, this and that of fighting in front of, let's say, 20,000 or 30,000 people. Do you think they might miss that? Is that like something that, and also, I mean, for the sport, they're actually losing money, but for the fighters, is that something that maybe some of them have said that they do miss it?
I've heard a lot of people do get hyped up with the crowd, and although I've only had a few professional fights, I'm 4-on-1 now. I've had over 20 amateur fights, and even the amateur fights all had crowds. So
Mhm.
I do like the crowd, but I've had found fighting on a private event actually decrease the stress.
Yeah.
Like I know the fight is important, but you know there weren't many people to say boo. Not that I've had many people to boo, but for
Yeah.
example, the guy that I fought, he was Singapore's hometown hero. He was like Singaporean's first pro MMA fighter. So I heard a lot of people wanted him to win, like they were on his side. So maybe if there were people there, I would have heard boos and that could have, affected my performance. Who knows? But I think it played to my advantage because I'm very used to being on camera because I film all my sparring footages and whatnot, and didn't have to worry about any haters that night.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll definitely get into to the whole YouTube content creating thing a bit later. So you got signed recently to ONE FC. Was that was that the organization that you wanted to get signed to?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, actually, it's funny because prior to that, I had told myself, I told my audience that I wouldn't fight again. Um, I mean, I love being a martial artist in the sense that I love training. I love the grind. Just trying to get better every day. I love sparring, but I'm not a fan of fighting itself. Fighting is very stressful. And
Yeah.
on top of that, my fiance is very, very against me fighting. So I actually had told her, like, sorry, she had convinced me to retire from professionally fighting. And then suddenly one championship reached out to me and offered me a contract. And it was kind of like a can't say no to it kind
Yeah.
of deal.
Why does she not want you to fight just for your, just she wants to protect you. She doesn't want you to get hurt.
Protection. Yeah. She doesn't want to marry someone who's going to have brain damage, essentially. Well, at least that's what she thinks.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's very plausible. There's a lot of guys that does happen to, probably more in boxing, I would assume, but MMA as well.
I definitely agree that it's much worse for boxing, but to people who are not in the sport itself, it's very easy for them to believe, that MMA is also very bad for your brain. Well, I mean, it is, but
yeah. I mean, there's nothing good about, and you can see this with some of the retired guys that just, even like not even like CTE, but just body wise, right? The amount of
damage they've taken, yeah.
Yeah, to the neck, to the back, to the legs, to the knees. Cuts to the face. If you look at someone like, I don't know, Tony Ferguson or Justin Gaethje, right? Their fighting style is so wild that I don't know if that's the recipe for longevity, but it's definitely the recipe for making exciting fights and getting fans.
Yeah. So although I agree that, fighting is not the best for me, I do believe in the longevity of training in general. So by competing, that may not necessarily lead to a long career in the sport.
Yeah. But there's also ways, I mean, there's fighters that, you're obviously going to get hit, but they get hit less. If you look, obviously, at Mayweather in boxing, and there's also guys in if you even look at Khabib, even though it's completely different fighting style, but he barely gets touched. I don't think he's even had a bruise on his face in his, 30 fights in MMA.
That's true.
Yeah. So.
But only a few of us can beat Khabib or Mayweather.
Yeah, right. It's a style I think you have to hone in from such a young age. This defensive style where you're ducking or you're just super aggressive that just no one can do anything. But yeah, that's a lifelong skill that people have to hone. So you're happy with how many if you don't mind me asking, how many fights are you signed for in one?
I have a 6-fight contract.
6 fights. All right, cool. And they guarantee you X amount of fights each year?
I'd have to go through the contract again, but I believe there's a set amount. I think it was 2, but I'm not sure if they have to.
Okay.
Yeah. In my mindset, it's kind of like take one fight at a time.
Yeah. And they're a little bit different, right? Because they have, unlike UFC, which only does MMA, they have MMA, Muay Thai, kickboxing, and then they have, I guess, champions with multiple belts and multiple practices. Who are the kind of some of the top guys that, you think? Because I don't think people here know as much about one. Obviously, they know Demetrius and they know some of the UFC guys that move over to one. But who are the top kind of non-American guys that you think fans should keep an eye on?
Non-American, I would say Martin Nguyen. He is the featherweight champion. There's Christian Lee, the lightweight champion. Kevin Bellington, he's the bantamweight. And those are the 3 that come to mind.
And those are MMA?
Yes, MMA guys. When it comes to kickboxing, there's so many. There's like Giorgio Petrosian. There's Nikki Holskin. There's just a countless amount. I can continue naming on and on. But for the MMA guys, I would name those 3 guys.
Yeah, I think Liam Harrison fights there, right? In Muay Thai.
Yeah, he recently signed as well. Yeah,
Oh, he's an animal.
he is.
Yeah.
Have you seen him hit pads on
Oh my
Instagram?
god. Oh my god. There's and then there'll be some comments sometimes where it's like, dude, you don't know how to hit. I'm like, how are you telling this guy?
Yeah,
That,
you know what? There's always haters, no matter what you do, no matter how good you are, no matter how good of a person you are. There's always going to be haters, and that's what I've come to realize. Being on YouTube and starting to get my name out there, there's always going to be haters, and they're just some of the things that they say is just ridiculous.
yeah. I mean,
They'll say any. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, they'll say anything just to hate. Like here's a quick example. Um, I posted about me sparring a Taekwondo fighter. He's significantly bigger, and
I saw
one
that.
champ. You saw that, okay? So one championship reshared it, and they tagged me, and I happened to click in, review some of the comments, and like people would say just dumb things, like what was one of the comments? So I basically caught the kick and swept them. And
Yeah, I love that.
I'll get a comment saying, I think I read a comment saying, that's a crappy kick, and if you don't want to get caught, just don't throw your kick, dummy. Or, something really stupid.
Oh my god. There's these keyboard warriors that for some reason, I don't know, they I don't know, it's because people feel bad. I mean, there is real stuff to get outraged about on the internet, but there's people that will go and they'll just try to trash everyone doing good, positive things, and I don't know why that is. Maybe they're unhappy. Maybe they feel like if they say something bad or demean someone else, that lifts them up. I'm not sure what the psychology behind that is, but it's a little twisted. And it's the power of anonymity. You can just sit there and say whatever it is that you want to say, and with no real repercussion. It's not like they're going to meet you in the street and say that,
Yeah, no, I truly do believe that the people who are making those comments are people that are probably not very happy in their lives and need help.
Yeah. Where do you think is the worst? YouTube, Instagram, Facebook? Where do you see like the worst hate?
I would say YouTube for sure.
Really?
Yeah. Instagram, it's been pretty positive. YouTube, the number of haters is still low, but I would say YouTube, I've read like some terrible comments.
That sucks. Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, I watch Joe Rogan podcasts all the time, and
yeah,
one of the podcasts was with Joyce St. Pierre. Like, Joyce St. Pierre is such a nice guy, and who would hate on Joyce St. Pierre? Oh, what do you know? People do hate on Joyce St. Pierre.
Yeah,
like you can't be perfect.
No, he's the nicest guy. Like, how can you say something bad about him? He's literally all positive, all like he's like the angel of MMA, pretty much.
Exactly, and they're still haters. So I guess I've gotten a lot of people who I guess I've inspired them to start their own channels, their own platforms, and then they start and then they'll receive hate and they'll message me and say like, hey, how do you deal with hate? How do you deal with these like online haters? And I'll tell them it's like, no matter how good you are, there's always going to be haters. No matter how nice of a guy like George St. Pierre is, he'll still get haters. It just comes with it. And it's not your fault.
Yeah. I think you just have to block it out. Just don't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned GSP, and you recently started training at TriStar. How's that experience been?
It's been a really great experience. Very, very different. A lot of high level fighters, and Faraz is just a very smart coach. I love the way he thinks and teaches and sequences his classes. Like everything he teaches is in sequence, and I've just learned a lot there.
I mean, he's pretty much known as an MMA genius. I mean, could you put your finger on why that is? Why you think he's got that reputation?
He just, like I said, I would say I haven't been there that long, but just going to his jiu-jitsu classes, you can see how methodical his teaching is he won't teach random things. It's like everything is for a reason, and he'll tailor to a jiu-jitsu practitioner or an MMA practitioner, and yeah.
Is there an advantage going to a big gym like that or a big camp rather than maybe some of the smaller ones?
I would say the biggest advantage is the sparring partners. So like at my gym back at my home, I'd have to spar guys significantly bigger. And if I'm ever sparring someone that's my weight class, they're probably much less experienced. Whereas I go to TriStar and on sparring day, there's like 10 guys that are my weight class, if not more. And they're all really high level as well.
Okay. So there's better sparring partners, better. Yeah. I mean, I guess better sparring partners, better, maybe strength and conditioning workouts, just better overall.
Actually, for the strength conditioning, the pro fighters will do it on their own time. So I met this guy named Xavier Aloui. He's one of my training partners, and he ended up coming with me and coaching me for my one championship debut. But he owns a strength and conditioning gym called One Punch, and a lot of the fighters go there to do their strength conditioning.
So in ONE FC, the weight cut is done a little bit differently, right? It's not the same as the UFC. Do they have some rules in place so people don't cut too much?
Yes, so they don't allow any water cut. So they do hydration tests, which I almost failed actually.
Really?
Yeah. So basically, the weight class for bantam, or the weight category, is 135 to 145 to be bantamweight. So normally I have to cut down to 135, but this time I only have to cut to 145. But I cannot cut any water. But I also have to be very hydrated. And it was tricky for my first time because I didn't know what hydrated was considered. Like I drank water that day. I drank a lot of water, but if I hadn't drank my last cup of water, I might have failed it because you have to be really hydrated at 145.
Wow. So do they check kind of like what your walking around weight is, and then they calculate based on that how much you're allowed to cut, or they have some sort of a machine or test that test your hydration on the day of?
They'll check your walk around weight randomly, but we'll do like a pee test, urine test. Yeah.
So based on that, they know the hydration level.
Yeah, they'll actually test it right in front of everybody during the weigh-ins.
Oh, really?
And you have to actually weigh in twice.
Huh. All right, that's different.
Yeah, it's different, but it's definitely a lot easier. So like my walk around weight is 152, and then I used to cut down to 135, and I would just diet to 142 and then water cut to 135. But now I just have to diet to 145 and no water cut.
Oh, that's amazing. Because there's guys in the UFC, you'll see them, they'll walking around weights like 190, and dude fights at 55, and then he weighs in at 55. Within 24 hours, you'll see him at 75.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
like that can't be healthy for your body, man. The fluctuation within such a short period of time. There's a video of Darren Till from I don't know, a year or two ago, and he was fighting at 170. This guy was walking around like 220, and he's literally he's in the sauna, and there's video of him, and he's coming out of the sauna on all fours, just crawling. He can't walk. And I'm like, that's one of the hardest videos I've had to watch. I was like, dude, this guy's literally killing himself. Like, there's no way he's going to be fight ready in 24 hours.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not healthy for you. And I hope all organizations take this approach. It's so much healthier for the fighters. You feel so much better, and it's so much easier. And there's no, cheating, right? Because everyone's going to be the same weight.
So do you have any, because you have your very interesting style that you have. It's obviously Muay Thai based, but, you incorporate other elements. Do you have certain fighters that you like to emulate, that you like to take certain things from?
Actually, yeah, I would say, yeah. So I started with Muay Thai, but my striking looks very different. Definitely doesn't look Muay Thai, and nobody would guess that my striking background is Muay Thai. They would guess like karate. But the truth is, I started with Muay Thai, but I get rid of things that I don't like. Right? That's how you should be as a martial artist. You should take what works and throw out what doesn't. And I'm a visual learner, and I watch a lot of fights. And George St. Pierre is a fighter that I've done a lot of research on, and that's why my stance is very wide. So I've taken George St. Pierre's in and out movement, his wide stance from his karate background. So I take that, but I throw away the karate attacks, and I use Muay Thai weapons with the karate footwork, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you have a very deceiving high switch kick. Mm-hmm. And because you duck your head when you do it, so it doesn't necessarily look like it looks like maybe you're coming in for an outside leg, or an outside leg kick, but not a high switch kick. Where did you learn that one from?
TJ Dillashaw.
Yeah,
I could easily say high kicks I learned from watching TJ Dillashaw, my footwork from watching Dominic Cruz, my low kicks from Jose Aldo, my wide stance from George St. Pierre, my blitz attacks from Lyoto Machida, etc. There's so many fighters that you can take from and just add it to your own arsenal.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because when I watched it, I was like, wow, he reminded me of someone, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Yeah, definitely TJ Dillashaw.
Yeah.
So usually because I've been doing Muay Thai for a while, and I personally love ending combos with leg kicks. Is there a favorite combo or favorite, strike that you like more than others?
I would say, Jose Aldo, starting with the hook, Dutch style, Raymond Decker style, hook low kick. I used to be very big with, Dutch style, using the hands to set up the kicks. But now I find I've been, at least my sparring partners know what I'm going to do. So they see the kick coming. So now I'm kind of using my low kicks to set up my hands more.
Mm. Yeah, I took a seminar once with Ernesto Hust, and this was years back. This guy is huge. He was humongous. Like I was like half his size, and he actually did one of the combos, kind of like I was just holding the gloves for him, mm-hmm. And he ended with a low kick on my leg. Obviously, he just touched it, but even that touch, I was like, well, okay, like if that shit lands, that's it. It's a wrap. It's
Ernesto Hus is he's also a guy that I used to follow a lot. Deadly low kicks.
Deadly. There's he's probably one of the first ones I think that really used it, because he was doing this like 90s, early 2000s. He was and his leg kick isn't just a straight, like it comes from above and just chops
kicks it downwards.
Yeah. And he
does and Liam Harrison.
Yeah, Liam Harrison as well. But yeah, so I think that's something you implemented very well in your Gillespie fight. Do you think that made you a huge difference in that fight?
Yeah, it was like all low kicks.
It was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's just with my Gillespie fight, but all my fights, I like to kick the leg. Big part of my game.
Yeah. So what do you for people maybe that don't know, what does that do when you kick someone's leg? What advantage does that give you?
Well, it first of all slows down your opponent. So if you chop his legs, he's going to be slower with his footwork. It'll also start draining the punching power because you use your legs to punch, or at least to punch with power. And you fake low. After you kick the legs a lot, you can fake low and start attacking high. So it sets you up for other opportunities.
Yeah. That's I think that's very helpful. I think because maybe not everyone knows. You kind of forget when you're in it. You think everyone knows these things, but there's some guys that maybe don't follow MMA or Muay Thai, so it's helpful for them to get some insight.
For sure.
So you're, like you said, you're a student of the game. You follow and you've learned from a lot of different people. do you think, or how important is it, do you think, for fighters to study different aspects, Dutch kickboxers, MMA, Muay Thai, Shoto, karate, all these different methods? Or should they, focus on the one specific thing they love, or should they focus on many different things?
I think it's important to start with one until you build your foundations, and just understand that discipline first, but always be open-minded, especially if you're going to compete in MMA or just do MMA in general. MMA is so vast. It's just so many possibilities and options that you might need to switch your stance. You might need to switch your stance just because of the fighter you're fighting. So I believe that you should start with one discipline and build the foundation. And then once you've gone comfortable with that, then you can start a second discipline and then start mixing it more.
So be proficient in one thing and build on that.
Yeah. So I believe I trained Muay Thai for 4 years before I even started started training Jiu-Jitsu. I was really comfortable with Muay Thai first. Whereas some people, they get too excited when they start and they start training Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, boxing. They train all four or all three at the same time. And it's just too much for you to learn and too much for you to get good at one. Be a master at one discipline and then slowly work on the other.
Yeah, similar to to Wonder Boy, for example, who's just so good at one thing, but he's also not, his takedown defense is good. Like he doesn't get taken down much. Mm-hmm. He's really good at the one thing that he does.
His in and out attacks. Yeah.
Yeah. He's the way he throws those kicks and cuts those angles, and even his hands, he lets, his hands are low, but he throws them very well. And then he's out of there before you even try to punch back. So he moves very well. I would love to do sparring with him. Just get kicked in the head once by Wonder Boy, and that's it.
True. Yeah. I've seen him spar a lot of people. He's very controlled as well. Very nice guy.
He's he got the nicest MF in the game award or something.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. Because they did the whole Masvidal got the baddest motherfucker in the game.
Oh,
so
yeah.
He got the nicest one.
I wonder if he's the nicest or Sage Northcutt. I know Sage is with one championship now, but that kid is so nice.
He seems like it. Have you met him?
I've never met him, but just based off watching him on social media, he's such a nice kid.
Yeah, I feel like he goes to sleep smiling. Like he's just always smiling.
Yeah.
But I know he broke his jaw in the last fight.
Yeah, fighting what's his name? I forgot.
I forgot. Anyway, yeah.
Cosmo Alexander. Yeah, that was a bad knockout.
Yeah, that was really bad actually. But Cosmo's a legit fighter. He's been doing this for a minute.
For sure. I mean, I was surprised that they put him up against such a tough opponent for his first fight. But I guess one championship want to show that their guys are just as good as UFC guys.
Yeah, there's a little bit of flex there, right? On their part, they're like, we have the best guys in the world, and I mean, you kind of see that, right? Even some of the Eddie Alvarez lost his first fight, and
Demetrius Johnson had a very tough fight.
Yeah. There's no easy fights there.
Yeah, no, definitely there are lions at one championship for sure.
Yeah, I think it's just, in America, maybe we know less about it, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because it's in Asia, maybe they don't have the marketing isn't as good. Maybe because a lot of the guys don't speak English, so they can market themselves. But there's definitely, I've watched some fights and there's some legit guys at one.
Yeah, I would just say that UFC is much more well known in America, and then One Championships is the opposite, much more well known in Asia.
Yeah, and then they could potentially even, I don't know what the numbers are, but they could have even a larger viewership just because Asia is massive. You're talking billions of people.
That's what they say, actually. But
interesting.
Yeah.
So, do you think it's because you obviously have a lot of videos. You actually have. So I was scrolling down. Your first video is literally you going out in the street and asking people, "Hey, can you punch me in the face?" And so I guess that kind of leads to two questions. One is, do you think, and obviously later on the video changed to more breakdowns and quality content. But A, do you think it's an advantage or a disadvantage to show kind of all your skills and techniques online? And B is, sorry, let me just finish the thing. And then B, as far as the that video, how did you come up with that idea, and how did people actually do with trying to punch you in the face?
Should I start with A or B?
Yeah, whatever you want.
Okay. Having all my footage online is definitely can be a disadvantage, but it can also be an advantage to me. It depends on how hard you study me, I guess. A disadvantage, obviously, because people study me, but I'm not that concerned because I don't just put my best stuff out there. I put out content of me trying new techniques all the time, and I don't tell them whether or not that's my best skill or not. Like I'm always just trying different techniques. I'm imitating fighters. So, if you study that video, you might think that that's my style, but really that's not my style, and so on. But if they really study me, then, I guess they would know my style. But then again, if you watch my last fight, you should also already be able to know my style. So it can be a disadvantage, or it can be an advantage. Or sorry, it's not an advantage, but it can be a disadvantage. It depends on how much they try to study me. For your second question about the going on the street, basically, I had a friend who inspired me to start the channel, and that friend is the one who gave me the idea to do it. So the first video of your channel, I mean, I've always had planned to make tutorials, but I started with that video because it was a strategy to make a viral video. So that video actually hit one of the most top views of all my videos. And it was actually very tough to film because although I had about like 5 or 6 people participate in the trying to punch me in the face, a lot of people kind of walked away and thought I was really weird.
Yeah, who's this crazy guy asking me to punch him in the face?
Yeah, I had like over 10 people be like, give me a dirty look and kind of just walk away. Yeah.
But were people, successful? Some of them? I mean, it didn't seem like any of them had any background. But
no, I believe maybe like one person or 2 people had like a bit of martial arts background, but the other people didn't have any martial arts experience at all. And actually, I got a lot of hate on that video. Although it did very well and it gave me a lot of subscribers as my first video, I got a lot of hate.
Yeah, like we said, you're gonna get that, right?
Yeah, the most common comment on that video would be like, "These guys can't punch." But the thing is, in the introduction, I made it clear that I wasn't trying to prove I was good. I was just trying to prove that the long guard works against untrained people. So that's why you should go ahead and learn it so that you'll learn self-defense.
Yeah, it seems like an obvious thing, right? You're not in the gym. You're out on the street. You're going up to random people. This isn't like a gym where people are trained. So that was the whole idea behind it. I think that was, and I think you did well. I don't know why. And again, I don't know. People love to talk shit when they can, or it is what it is. But your tutorials are actually, I love them because they don't have this 20-minute build up. A lot of times you'll go on the tutorial for anything, right? And then the guy will talk about 20, 30 minutes about something completely unrelated, the history of it. He'll do that unboxing. Like, I just want to know this thing that I clicked on. Why are you making me like go through this whole 20-minute build up just to see this? So I love that they're authentic and unique, and there's not a lot of fluff. You just give the breakdown. You explain, whatever the headliner says in the tutorial, that's what the video is. And it's also not, again, it's not 30, 40 minutes. It's, it's broken down into what it needs to be broken down. So, I really enjoy the videos.
Thank you. Yeah, that's something that I try to differentiate myself from other, channels, is that I have a very short attention span, and so does everyone else. So I just go cut straight to the chase.
So you said the idea originally started from your friend, right?
Yes. You might have heard of him. His name is Sean Fagan,
Oh yeah.
the Muay Thai guy.
Yeah, I know him. I know. Yeah, he's a great channel as well.
Yeah, yeah. How it started was he was hosting his first camp in Thailand, and this was three years ago, I believe, or 4 years now, 2016. And I went to go meet him and train with him, and yeah, I was very inspired by what he did, and I guess he basically, if I remember correctly, he told me like you could do the same thing in MMA, and I used his camera to film my first video. So he was the guy that got me into it and inspired me.
Is he Canadian?
He is New York, actually.
Oh, he's from New York. Okay. Yeah. I wonder where he trains here in New York.
So he's from New York, but now he lives permanently in Thailand.
Okay. So does he still fight, or is he just training there?
I believe he still fights here and there. Yeah. In Thailand.
You were just in Thailand, right?
Yeah, I was in Thailand before Singapore, and then after Singapore, I went to Vietnam. And if it wasn't for COVID-19, I would still be in Thailand right now, because I was supposed to host one of my training travel camps there in Koh Samui.
What camp?
Sorry, what?
Just you out of what camp do you train in Thailand, or were you training in Thailand?
It would have been my own camp.
Oh, your own?
I can't remember what the gym was called, but basically I rent out a gym there, and I host a camp that consists of about 12 to 14 people. For this camp specifically, there were 14 people who had signed up, and so it's a 2-week long camp, and we train 2 to 3 times a day, every day, and I just have a structured curriculum for 2 weeks on, and after training we go and explore the island, and it's a really fun time.
Sign me up, man. Sign me up.
I'd love to have you.
Yeah, I went to Thailand twice, a long time ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Maybe even, no, probably close to 10 years. Yeah, a long time ago. And I did first time I did about a month training camp.
Oh, what gym did you go
to? What was his name? I'm blanking on the name right now, but it was in Bangkok, but like the less touristy part. It was like near this weekend market thing, and it was just really old school. Like it didn't have pretty much anything in that gym. The little guest house I was sleeping in didn't have any hot water. It's all cold water. It's nothing fancy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And you would go running in the morning. You would like run through the market, and you would just smell all the, I know they would be burning shit in the morning. I don't know exactly what it was. Yeah. And it was just like, and you'd be like inhaling that as you were running to the park every morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm blanking on the name, but it was a fun experience. I feel like, and like you said, it's like 5 hours of training every day, and it's like a year's worth of training in a month, pretty much.
Yeah, I think a lot of people go to Thailand because you can get fights really easily. Like you can get a fight on a day's notice, and training in the heat, training outside the environment. Thailand's just known for being a fight country, and yeah, that's why I host my camps there as well. And everything, and the food's also so cheap that you really save on money. Yeah.
Yeah, the food's delicious there. Man, I'm not kidding. Sign me up. I'll definitely be glad to come. But I remember when I was training there, my first fight that my coach set up. Mm-hmm. He takes me to this club, and I see it's kind of like I don't know, strippers, and it looks weird, and there's a lot of tourists and stuff. I'm like, dude, I thought we were fighting today. He's like, yeah, we're fighting. And he takes me upstairs, and I see this guy that I'm supposed to fight. This guy looks like he's got, who knows, hundreds of fights underneath him. I have no idea. And then he starts to like oil me up and everything. Uh-huh. And then I go down.
In Thailand.
Yeah, I've had a couple of like fights, but like I go down, and they set up this like little ring inside this like kind of strip club,
Mhm.
and yeah, just fight. And there's no real, it's like the ref who knows, who this guy is, and it was just impromptu Muay Thai fight in a strip club, and then afterwards, as soon as you finish the fight, he kind of tells you, all right, now go around and ask people for money. I'm like, what?
Oh, what?
He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, that's a tradition. It's tradition. And like me and this other fighter were kind of going around saying thank you, and people just giving us like, 100 baht, 200 baht. I was like, this
Really
is such a weird experience. But, that fight got me another like couple of weeks in Thailand. So I was like, all right, that's
Interesting. And
weird
let me
but
guess,
fun.
there was no weigh-ins.
No, nothing.
Me neither. My fight in Thailand, I ended up fighting a guy with over 80 fights, and he gave me 13 stitches.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that on you put it on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And but they do a pretty good job, right? Like with the stitches, surprisingly.
They did it. Yeah. But
Yeah,
it's just funny how there's no weigh-ins, and the fight was on like a week's notice, and
yeah. They eye it, right? It's like, yeah. you're about the weight. It's fine. You're good.
Exactly.
It's funny, man. So yeah. So back to your YouTube channel. Do you think you kind of you're setting the blueprint in a way for fighters? I mean, you obviously have a very big fan base, and I think it helps to know how to capitalize on social media. It's a big advantage nowadays in the industry. Doesn't matter if you're entertainment, modeling, tech, MMA. If you have a backing of fans behind you, it's an advantage. And I think a lot of maybe up and coming fighters or even professional fighters maybe aren't maybe not as aware, or they don't care as much, or they don't care as much to put the time and the effort into building that online presence. Do you think that's something that obviously you still have to be a good fighter, you still have to win, you still have to improve, but how crucial is it to build an online presence in order for that to propel your career forward, or at least potentially do that?
I think a lot of fighters nowadays are starting to see that they need a social presence to build a name for themselves. At the same time, I think there's a lot of fighters who just don't care about it, or they're too lazy to, and they just want to fight. That's all they care about. But I do see nowadays a lot of fighters who want to build their online presence. I guess it just depends on how much they're willing to put in. The thing about me is I'd say I'm different from many other fighters. Fighting is not a priority to me. I started this channel originally because I love training martial arts, number one, but I love sharing the knowledge, and I love helping people. I was actually in law enforcement before doing this full time. So my end goal is I like helping people. And, now I literally get daily messages from people saying like, hey, I love your content. It's helped me so much. I won my last fight from you, this, and that. And it's such a rewarding feeling. And that's why, like, no matter how much haters there are, the people who appreciate my work definitely outweighs the haters. And that's what motivates me to keep doing it. But with that said, my channel is, I'd say, very different from many others, or any other fighters that they could possibly have, is because I share my downfalls. Like, I share my sparring. Not a lot of pro fighters are not willing to put their sparring in because they're scared other fighters will read them. For me, again, my priority is content creation, so I choose that over the disadvantage that my fighter is reading, my skill or whatever. So I show a lot of my downfalls, which a lot of other fighters are not willing to do.
I think No, I was going to say you have two big advantages. One is, if you look at a lot of fighters, like just for example, Wonderboy and Nate Diaz and Connor and a lot of big ones, they start their channels after they're already in the UFC, after they're already a big name, right?
Exactly.
So it's easy for them to join that crowd. You're doing the opposite. You are building a name for yourself because of your online presence, and that helped to propel you forward. And now it's going to be this continuous loop where your online presence is going to potentially fuel your career, and your career is going to potentially fuel your online presence, right?
Exactly. Yeah. With that said, now that you've mentioned it, it's like showing everyone my journey, and I'm showing everyone that I didn't start off as a superstar like Wonder Boy or Conor McGregor. I started off um, not being that good, and they can see my skill progress as I keep vlogging my training and whatnot.
Yeah. I think also that that is a huge, I think people want authenticity, and people want to relate. And when you have, especially nowadays, it's very edited. Everything's edited to show the best side of yourself, because you can edit it in any way you want. So you're showing only the knockouts, and you're showing, especially with this social media lifestyle, where you're showing yourself only on vacation in a 5-star hotel on the beach in the Caribbean, and you're showing only the knockouts, and you're showing only when you're dressed the best and in the nicest car. But after a while, when you watch it, you're like, all right, come on, dude. Like, I'm in a
Yeah.
1-bedroom apartment in New York City. I'm not going anywhere. But when you have someone showing, all right, dude, look, like, I had a rough day today. I got knocked out by this dude, or this guy put me on my ass, and I'm working just as hard. I think that's why people are kind of tired of this celebrity culture. They want to relate to someone like themselves who is working hard and who's struggling, but still positive and still building momentum and still trying to influence other people to do good.
Exactly. And that also, what I want to add to it, I don't show only my best side because I want people to know that I'm not the best, and that I fail all the time to get better. And even now, I tell my audience all the time that I don't think I'm the best in the world. I don't think I can even ever be the best in the world. I just want to be the best version of myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So who does all the videography actually when you are training and doing all the sparring?
My fiance helps film. I started off with a tripod like 2-3 years ago, but now my fiance films everything. So thank God I have her.
Yeah, right. But she doesn't mind, because you said she's kind of opposed to you fighting, but she doesn't mind all the sparring and all that.
Sometimes you'll see like my sparring footage cut off because if there's a heavy exchange, she looks away and then she gets she doesn't film it. But for the most part, she films everything. And obviously sparring is, yes, you can spar hard, but if you see the knockout, you're not going for the knockout, right?
Yeah.
It's still different.
You would hope so.
You would hope, yeah. My last sparring session with that Taekwondo fighter, he went a little hard, but
yeah, you could see off the bat, he was, as soon as you cut the leg, he was throwing these hard punches. And yeah, there's just some of these guys that just want to go a little bit harder. Do you actually find it easier sparring with guys that are taller or shorter than you?
I definitely think it's easier to spar someone shorter. I hate sparring people tall. I hate fighting people who are tall. That's actually one of the main reasons why I transitioned into MMA, is because in Muay Thai, you get okay, I remember I was fighting at 145 and I fought a guy that was 6'3".
Wow.
Super tall and super skinny. And I couldn't hit his face. All I could do was kick his legs.
Wow.
But in
345.
Yeah, you can also find that fight on my channel, I think. He's super tall, super skinny, and in Muay Thai, you got to strike with him, and it's really hard to hit him in the face. But in MMA, you can go for the takedown. And if the guy's that tall and skinny, you're probably stronger than him, so you'll probably have the advantage if you take him to the ground. So that's why I appreciate MMA so much more.
So what was your technique in that fight? What did you do?
I kicked his leg. I literally kicked his leg like a million times. I came out with a unanimous decision as well. I just literally chopped his legs.
That's awesome. I don't think people understand how good a leg kick can be. It's one of those things where you get kicked 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, hard kicks, that changes the outcome. And people don't want to get kicked as much, and they're not going to be as maneuverable. They're not going to move as well. So I don't know. I think it's a little underrated.
It is. It is. They just need to watch Jose Aldo kick someone in the leg, and they'll understand.
Oh, that Uriah Faber fight,
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah. His leg was so swollen.
Oh, it's horrible. I don't know if you saw that. I think like the next day he posted a video. It looked like he had two legs. It was horrific. It
Yeah,
was just all swollen, black, purple, blue, all different
and he
shades.
was on crutches, right?
Yeah, he was on crutches.
Yeah, I remember the exact video you're talking about.
Poor fella. Yeah. So back to the videos. Do you give your girlfriend, do you give her kind of creative freedom to do what she wants, or does she just do the filming and then you kind of do the editing and then the voiceover and all that?
She just films when I tell her to film. She does not like filming. She does not enjoy doing it, but saves me money from hiring someone to film for me. But yeah, I do the editing. She actually does the back end stuff for the business. Like, she is much more business minded than I am. I'm more of just like the martial arts guy, the face of the brand. But she does all the business back end stuff. Although I do the editing, she'll kind of look over and tell me like, that font's too big, that font's too small, or this and that.
Yeah, you need that feminine touch sometimes with the creative stuff. I use my wife's help also with these type of things, and she's just a little better at it than I obviously am.
Yeah.
But I think people misunderstand or maybe underestimate the amount of work involved in creating content, YouTube content. I mean, content's content. Doesn't matter if it's for YouTube or for anywhere else. But I mean, you have to come up with ideas, create them, edit them, engage, market, you do all these different things, and still you have to train full time. So, I mean, that can't be easy.
Yeah, it's definitely takes away from fighting. So before signing with One Championship, I just spent all my time training and making videos. And then when I found out that I had my fight coming up, I moved to TriStar. And actually, not only did I not have time to create content, I was actually not allowed to film my sparring at TriStar because there's too many pro fighters with fights coming up. So Faraz didn't allow me to film during that time. And so it's hard to balance both. Right now, I would be making more content, but I'm stuck at home.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't
what do you do during this time? I mean, if like you said with Corona, I mean, it's a little harder to create content now, right?
Well, I'm doing a lot of home workouts for people to follow, shadowboxing workouts, self-training videos for people who are also, well, I mean, everyone's stuck on lockdown right now. But besides that, I actually have a lot of footage I have not edited. Like I have probably another 10 to 20 videos that I could make right now with unedited footage, because I traveled to Asia and I visited like 20 different gyms and I just filmed a lot, and I just haven't had the time to edit it all.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a good thing to have, because like we said in the beginning of the podcast, we just don't know right now. This could be, I mean, I know here in New York, they extended it until like May 15th, if I'm not mistaken.
May 15th.
But again, this is just for now, and we just don't know. So I think what you're doing is very smart. And again, back to the business aspect of it, you get paid when you fight, obviously, just like any other fighter. But if, because of this thing, if there are no fights happening, then a lot of fighters are not getting paid. And if there's an alternative route for them for income, another income stream, that's amazing. So if you have, the videos that you put out, and if you have so much content that you can just edit and keep putting out for the next couple of months, that's a huge benefit that, again, even if fighters don't want to capitalize on it and work and gain that online presence, they should do this just as an additional income stream.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's also keeping me really busy.
Yeah. And I mean, does it help you when you're sitting and editing and reviewing on your technique and sparring and all? Is it beneficial for you when you're looking at like, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I can improve on this next time and kind of work on it in your head?
Absolutely. I actually tell people, so I'll teach private sessions online. So I watch people spar and critique. But, before I had to tell them to film their sparring because I learned so much from watching myself spar, and I learned how to be a better coach when I watch myself spar, because I would say I'm a naturally athletic person. So I'll do techniques that I don't plan it. I just do it naturally. And I won't know what I did until I watch myself spar and slow it down and break it down myself. So at first, when I started this channel, I would think of a technique, try to pull it off, and then teach it. But I'm at a point now where I just film my sparring. I try random stuff. Obviously, I try to imitate fighters, but I'll also just spar regularly. And then when I pull off that move, I'll teach that move, if that makes sense. So I'm not,
definitely.
Sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this move that Max Holloway does. Or sometimes I'm just sparring and then I see that I'm doing something and then I break it down and I teach it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I also like to include sparring footage to everything I teach to keep it genuine. So that also helps.
Yeah. I think authenticity is a big thing for you, that's why probably a lot of people can relate.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about your online platform, the MMA Shredded website?
So on my website, you can sign up for my train and travel camps. And I also have my online courses there. I have about 3 courses at the moment.
And what made you, because you originally started with the YouTube and then you switched over to the online platform. Like what made you do that or add that, not switch, but what made you add that?
So I originally, like I said earlier, I was in law enforcement and YouTube was just a side thing. It was like a way to vlog my journey, like a little journal in a way, and help others as well. And then, I started to see some growth in 2017. And I think around 2018, I hit around 100,000. And that's when I was like, and I could maybe make a living off of this. And then I decided to make that big jump. And obviously just YouTube is not enough to make a living. And I needed to find other ways to make money. And Sean, the Muay Thai guy, he has lots of courses online, and I basically learned from him. He's essentially like a mentor.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. Did you ever have to use any of your martial arts as a law enforcement guy?
A bit, but like a bit of grappling, but I never had to strike anybody.
Never had to flatten someone out.
Yeah. I was always in the security industry, armored transportation industry. And then I was in law enforcement for about 2 months, actually only before making the switch.
So you grew up in Ottawa or you grew up in Toronto?
I was in Ottawa, and Ottawa is not a small city, but the law enforcement opportunities were limited. So after I graduated, I moved to Toronto, which is a much bigger city, for more opportunities.
Okay. Yeah, I would imagine Ottawa is just, I don't know, whenever I think of Canada, I just see this idyllic nature thing. I don't know. I have this picture in my head of just landscapes of mountains and rivers and beavers and maple, and it just all seems so nice and quiet and idyllic. Every time I go to Canada, people are super nice and all the places are just beautiful. So
a lot of government buildings in Ottawa. Nature is decent. I think Vancouver is better for nature. Vancouver, Calgary, Quebec.
Yeah. British Columbia is unbelievable.
Yes. Yes.
So
Have
yeah.
you been to Canada?
Yeah, I've been, so funnily enough, so when I got to New York about 7 years ago, I think about 2 weeks after I got to New York, I took a car and I drove up to see the John Jones Gustafsson fight in
Mm-hmm.
Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And, I stayed in an Airbnb there, and, I just literally just drove out there just to see the fight. So I think it was maybe like, I can't remember exactly, maybe like 10 hours it took us to drive up to Toronto.
Okay.
And watched the fight. And then the next day we drove up to, I think it's Bryce National Park or Bruce National Park. I forget the name exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and we just drove back next day. So it was just to watch the fight. And that was my first time in Toronto. And then I've been to British Columbia twice. Just, went to Whistler, did some snowboarding,
Mm-hmm.
and then just kind of traveled around Vancouver Island and all those areas. So, but every time I went to British Columbia, I was just blown away by the landscape and just how beautiful and scenic that place is.
Yeah, it is a very nice place. We actually want to move there.
You do?
Yeah. My fiance does, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, right now, are you still in Ottawa, or did you move because of the training camp?
So I should be in Montreal right now, but the gym is closed. I mean, all gyms are closed, so there's no point in being there. So I'm back in Ottawa. But I moved to Montreal for the fight camp, and then I was gonna spend more time in Asia before coming back to Montreal. But because the gym's closed down, I'm in Ottawa with my mother.
Oh, I see. So, but if everything was normal right now and there's no corona and there's no nothing, how does training work? Like, you obviously, if you have a fight, then you go into fight camp, which is, and depending, probably 8 to 12 weeks or so. But outside of fight camp, do you still train at, in that specific gym in TriStar, or do you just go around, or how does the training regime work?
I think I would be in Montreal training at TriStar. Again, it's my first time moving to Montreal, so I'm not sure how my schedule would be. But normally, if I'm not in fight camp, I'm training about once a day, every day at least, and focusing on creating content.
Do you run as well?
I will run months before a fight. So yeah, like if I'm not in fight camp, I'll run just to build that aerobic system, build up the legs. But then when I'm in fight camp, I focus on all high intensity, like sprints only.
What do you think about, I remember, what's the guy's name? Joseph Valtellini, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So he said he never runs.
He doesn't run. Yeah.
And, what do you think of that?
He actually has the same approach as Faraz. Faraz doesn't run. He just does like high intensity exercises. Same with Joyce St. Pierre. But for me, I found that running, low intensity running, really helps with my cardio. I learned that, or the reason why the Thais all do slow, long, low intensity runs is because it develops aerobic system, and the stronger aerobic system you have, the more your anaerobic systems recover after your 10-second sprint or your 1 minute of high intensity action. So for me, a big game changer with my cardio was doing long runs.
Yeah, I'm just looking for someone to tell me not to run. I just, I just hate running. I mean, I know it's good, but I remember in town as well, like we would, I'd get a knock on the door around 7:30 a.m. Right, it's time to go running, and you go run for whatever it was, 5 miles or something. And like I said, we would run through the market into the park, and then we do a few laps in this huge park. But I remember when I think it was around 9 a.m. or something, or 8:30. I would run, and then I would see everyone stop and just completely like stop to hold on. I'm like, what's going on? Why is everyone stopping? It was just like it was so weird. And they would, because I guess they would have some song coming on the radios across the city, as sort of a hail to the king type of thing.
Okay.
So everyone kind of has to stop and, honor him for about a minute or so. And for me, it's so difficult when I run to stop and then to continue running.
Yeah. Interesting. I never had that happen to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It was, I don't know if it's, I'm assuming it's not all over, but it's definitely in certain parks. Like, I saw it in a couple of parks that I went to. So,
interesting.
Yeah. So initially I stopped, and then after a while where I felt like this is just fucking up my run, I just kept running. I couldn't stop. Yeah. Thailand's a fun place. I'd love to go back.
Yeah, it's definitely a destination that I'm gonna keep returning to.
Yeah. I mean, they're just, it's what, England or Spain is to soccer, or what the NFL or NBA here in the US. It's like Muay Thai is just, it's part of the fabric of Thailand. It's intrinsic to who they are.
Yeah, exactly. National sport.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, Jeff, I want to thank you so much, man, for coming on. You've been a true sport, and everyone, check out MMA Shredded website, YouTube, Instagram.
Yes.
If there's other places or things that you want to tell people, yeah, go for it.
No, that would be it. YouTube and Instagram primarily. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun. It's fun first podcast.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you had fun. I had a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll do it in the future when you hit a million subscribers.
That'd be awesome.